Hey, yo. Um, been a while since I've recorded or since I've posted a video. There's some I haven't gotten around to posting because I've just been busy. But here I am. Today, I want to talk about recursive process. And what I mean by that is a process in which you revisit old things that you've experienced or worked on to add value to it, make it more important. And I think it's more of a lifestyle thing than necessarily something that you make work about. But I'll dive into all that. So I'm on tour here and I'm like revisiting a lot of old thoughts and thinking that I try to expand upon as I do everything. And there's a podcast I went on a long time ago, and it was about 5D consciousness. And essentially, what that is planning your route based upon what you want for the future. And how I think about this is perceiving the end before the beginning. This can be actually very important with whatever endeavors you're chasing, whether that be work, whether that be lifestyle, just anything that you are trying to achieve or expand upon. And there's so much that comes with vision, with seeing what it is that you want. And I have gotten into the habit of trying to be more conscious, more aware of this process. And there's a lot to be said about success and vision. So if I bring it back to something that I've put into practice in physical movement and martial arts and tricking, I'm not the best out there, but I really made it a habit to watch those that were similar to what I wanted to be. Like, what do I want to look like when I move? What do I want to, like, intensity or emotion or all these things do I want to show when I move? And there's just something innate about how we are, like how we function as people, and seeing and then following. So therefore, when you see something, you naturally want to follow it. You're inclined towards it. And then if you can map that out to do it intentionally, then you are planning your success. You're planning the route that you want to take, what you want to look like. And so I'm realizing that you can do this with as many things as you'd like. If you keep your focus on what you want to be, what you want to achieve, what you want to be enveloped in, you will have a gravity towards it. So vision is important, and how you can channel your vision, how you can manifest or foster it, how you can create an image in your mind of what you want something to be before you approach it will make it a lot easier to get there. So perceiving the beginning before the end. And how I view it is future sight, future vision. And that's the whole thing with, the 5D consciousness concept is like 4 dimensions is like what we're usually used to experiencing and perceiving. 5D, that's something that's unseen, something that is not realized yet, that's not created, but you have to keep visualizing what that is for yourself to create it and for it to be close to that image that you want it to be. If you don't have an idea of the vision that you want or what you're creating, then it can just be anything. You don't have a say so as much over what it is that you're going to foster because you don't have a clear image in your mind. So one way to manifest or create this is creating a vision around a goal, because it's easy to float and just be out and about and just entertain whatever's around you, whatever is physically in your vision, in your sight. So if you can, like plant a stake, and know what it is that you're aiming to get, where you're aiming to go towards, it's going to be a lot easier, because when you're distracted and you see things left and right, that's not the true direction that you want it to head in. So that's very important. So a practice that I developed and I'm keep focusing on is how can I create the clearest image of what I want for myself, but using other people as markers. So this being tied to vision is like if you want to be a painter, who do you look at? What paintings are you interested in that others have created, right? So then you can kind of bridge that gap by seeing something that is real, that is made, that is out there, that you can put a stake in, that you can tie yourself to. And then it's like you have a tether, right? And then you just follow that line all the way until you reach that point. But the thing is, it's going to look different when you get there because you're having your own experience, your own perception, your way of approaching things that is different than that person or thing that you're looking at. So don't be scared when you move forward and it's not exactly what you saw before because it's through you. It's different. Yourself as a vessel experiencing and doing is going to look different than the next person. So, and that's the cool and unique thing about it is it ends up being perfect in its interaction with you. At the end of the day, would you want to make or recreate something that someone's already done? The whole point is evolution. The whole point is creating something new if you want to create. That's how I view things. I don't want to just be in a rut where I'm making what other people have made already. That's kind of defeats the purpose of creation to me. So have a tether, have a stake of someone or something that you can see that's already done. So that can be your North Star. That can be what you aim towards. And then as you travel along this tether that you're following, things are going to look a little different because you're doing it. It might not be clean. It might be a little messy, around the edges when you first do it, but then it's going to be refined because you put practice into it, because it's gotten more rehearsed. There might be some level of difference and spontaneity in like each attempt of what you're doing, but you will get closer to that vision of what you want to create. So what I do is I view it as masking or overlaying someone else's completed experience on top of mine. So, for example, I'm trying to get better at stunts, like movie stunts. And I look at people that are out there that have become successful that I want to have a style like, that I want to maybe be compared to. I think that when we see something that's good, we want to make a comparison like, oh, I've seen this before, but it's a little different. Like, you see someone move in a way and you're like, oh, that's like Jackie Chan. Like, I think that's a good sign. I know that people don't, they want to be original, they want to look like their own thing. But I think when you get compared to something that is before you, that's a good sign because it's recognizable. And there's already something in people's mind tied to what you're doing, you know? If you're completely foreign, if you make art or anything that's just so out there that's not recognizable, they can't draw a parallel to anything, it's going to be hard for people to approach. And so that's also another key factor. So let's say I want to look like Jackie Chan. So Jackie Chan moves a certain way. He has like some goofy tendencies or a way that he carries his body, a way that he moves, a way that he like paces himself. If I keep repeating this feedback loop, right, that is looking at this guy, doing what he does, and then with my own style and spontaneity of action and what I'm doing, then I will be closer and closer to that. But at the end of the day, it's most likely not going to look exactly like that because I have my own way of doing things, my own perception and how I function. So you're masking another completed experience over your own for your vision that will lead you to approach what that vision is, and then that vision will change as you interact, as you formulate, as you create, and that will tether you towards the reality, towards the future that you want. And it's a lot easier said than done. There's going to be setbacks. There's going to be times when it doesn't pan or work out the way that you want, but that's when we get to the next part. And that is that it's a recursive process that you keep feeding back into it. I think when people find that they're not being successful, when they're not moving forward or they're stuck in something, it's because they haven't put enough into it. They haven't put enough effort. They've abandoned some project or practice that they do, and because they left it, then you've lost everything. You've lost all the work that you've put forward to it unto that point. And that's where people can be very frustrated because they're like, oh, I'm trying all these new things, but nothing's really working because they haven't put the maybe years of practice or development or support from themselves, from other people, for it to get big, for it to blow up. And when you abandon something that you're working towards, you've lost the effort, you've lost the time, you've lost the emotion tied to it. So even if it's in small degrees, you can still add back onto it. I view it like the concept of Ouroboros. And what that is it's like a snake looping in on itself. So the head of the snake, the fangs bite the tail, and it creates this circle that continues. And I like to think of that as similar to this recursive process I'm talking about, where it's a circle, right? So it's a continued repetition of a pattern, but there's a difference. You have the head and the tail. So where you start your process and it goes around in this repeating fashion, just because it repeats doesn't mean it doesn't change. So the head biting the tail, there's this transition period. There's this choice, if you will. There's this time where you've looped back to the beginning of what you do, but then you can change it for the next time. So if we put this into the idea of practice, a practice that you're doing, if you are exercising or if you are drawing, you can draw the same thing. You can do the same exercise. And you have that free will, that decision to change how you do something once you've restarted it. And there is the micro scale and the macro scale of repetition. You can view it as like, in small scale, is one day to the next day. How do you transition from what you did yesterday to what you do today? And then macro is like months, weeks, months, years, right? And so if you see how the cyclical pattern can change in your will, in your practice, in your decision making, the more times that you make changes, the more potential for success you have in that feedback loop. So you can start, right? You can start with the tail. It loops around. It goes back to the beginning. You can choose to do the same thing, right? Then there's no progress there. There's no building upon what you started. Once you reach the head, you can make the decision to change it. And maybe it's for the worse. Maybe it didn't work out. Then you make the decision again. And then it gets better. Okay, that worked. Make the decision again. It gets better. That worked. Make the decision again. That didn't work. Try something else. So I find that those that improve the fastest have a relationship with this recursive, repetitive process, and they know how it works. They know that they have to make new decisions, new changes quickly. And the faster they make those decisions, the more times they practice, the better it's going to be because they're staying in that loop. And then there's exiting the loop. That's like quitting a practice, quitting a project, leaving something that you're building on because it didn't create what you wanted it to on that loop, on that repetition of practice. And I think that's just usually when things go south. I've heard, listened to a lot of interviews, a lot of podcasts by different people. And one that I really love is by Seth Rogen, and he's talking about people in the industry, in acting, and he says he saw people that did make it and people that did not make it, and people that had the potential to make it. And the difference was the people who made it didn't quit, and that's important because let's say 5 years down the line, you haven't quit and you've repeated that recursive process over and over again. You've seen what works, you've seen what didn't. You keep building upon something that maybe didn't look like something at first, and it grows into something that does work because you stayed there. Even if it's the small degrees, even if you just show up once a week, once a month, you know, you're still there. You're still in the loop, and that's what creates success. It's easy to leave something when it doesn't look like it's successful. But at the end of the day, you have to have a desire for that thing. If you don't have a desire for that thing, you won't want to stay around. And if you don't want to stay around and you're probably not wanting to put the full effort required for it to be good, then, you know, you won't be successful at it. So that's all that's enveloped in that. And so you have to have a desire for it. You have to have a will to grow. You have to have expansion upon that feedback loop of that Ouroboros that's going to make you better. And I also liken it to another scenario. There's what's called the golden ratio. And so I like the visual of the golden ratio because it's a spiral. So it starts at the center, it goes around, and it doesn't create a full circle where the end meets the beginning. It actually spirals to be larger. So I think in that conceptualization as well, because it's like there's expansion, but it's the same pattern, and that's going to change over time. And so there's a drawing I have here. So this one is also like how I view the experience of like expansion of recreating, but doing new things in the same practice, right? And that's going to be this, which focus there. It's called looping, and I think it's a cool concept. So as you can see, the loops are very tight and all tied up together. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So it's like a smoother process. Like you cover more ground each loop, each movement, until it's smooth. And I would say, it, comes back to the beginning when like you reach a new challenge, a new level, elevation, if you will. And that's part of it as well. So it's not like you just get better and then you're good and it's easy. You actually, every time you expand to improve your skill, you're going to be reset where it's difficult, where the decisions are harder, where, you know, it's just not as fluid as a process. And that doesn't mean you've gone backwards. It just actually means that you've evolved, that you have improved. And that's kind of a hard thing to gauge. Like, when is that? Like, how do you understand what that means? So it's not easy, but I think when you understand like what this process is, like what it's like to keep getting better, because a lot of people they stagnate and then they think there's not a way to get better. But it's because they have this ceiling that they don't see. Like there's this glass ceiling that they're like, there's no going up there because they don't know how it works. But it's like if you always know that there's a higher level, then you can interact with it. So it's that understanding the confines of what you're in. So yeah, you have a vision of someone that's successful. You imprint or overlay that vision onto your experience, and you do some of the same things that they do through your practice, through your understanding, right? And so that's going to speed it up because you have a stake in the future, or someone else's future that you're repeating. So you see what they do. You make the process faster because you know what was successful for them. You get the live experience of yourself going through it, and you make your corrections. And so you get that feedback loop, more decisions, more practice, staying in the loop, not leaving what it is that you do. Like, be consistent with it. And then you improve faster. And then when there's that reset, when there's that ceiling that you have to push through because it's a reset, it's difficult again. And it's difficult because you've gotten better. Because with let's say it this way, there's 100%, right? 100% efficiency. If you're at 25% efficiency, it's going to be much easier to get to 26 than it is to get to 99, right? And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it feels different. So that's important to think about. It's going to be easier to prove in the beginning stages than it is the later stages as you go forward. And you have to keep adding value upon the things that you do and stay consistent with it, because if you abandon it, you abandon the 25%, the 50% progress or efficiency of whatever it is you're doing. And that just means you're not still tied to that stake of your future, that vision that you wanted yourself to be tethered to. So keep adding upon your experience, keep re-experiencing it, keep playing with how you do things, how you orchestrate and add to what you do. And you will be successful. It is inevitable to be successful if you don't stop. Everyone's time frame is different. Yours is different than mine. Mine is different than anyone else's. And if you don't have a certain expectation all the time, but you just are following the practice, following the results, following what you know works, that is the ultimate decider of your success. So that's today. That's all relating to that process or experience. There's more that I could liken it to in my own experience of like a physical practice, a mental practice, writing, whatever. And there's a lot of time where it doesn't feel like it's adding up to anything. Where you're in the beginning stage where it's like it's not the manifestation, it's not the physical interaction that you can make with something that you're doing. It's more of a thought, it's more of a concept. So that you just have to know that there's a later stage where it does develop and you're like, oh, I see the results of what I'm doing. And just stick it out until that point, and then you can continue that next feedback loop. But that's all today. I appreciate you watching. All these little vlogs and videos were going to be added upon a larger context, a video that I'm going to release. But have a good day. Believe that the day is great before it's begun, and it just might be. Peace.